Have you ever felt like God gave you a plan or a promise, but the moment you actually started walking into it, everything started to go wrong? If that sounds like you, then stay with me because on this episode, we are going to talk about why this happens and most importantly, how to continue moving forward when your path feels a little blurry. I think one of the most exciting parts of our Christian journey is when God gives us a plan, an instruction, or a promise. And the reason why is because it kind of acts like reassurance. It takes us from this place of wanting something and desiring something to having that confirmation that what we desire is aligned with God's will for our life. And this is something that He actually wants to bring us. We no longer have to dream about something and feel like maybe it will never happen. Now we have reassurance that it's going to happen because God told us and God confirmed it to us. And this will usually boost your faith. But what a lot of you are noticing is that it's hard to maintain that spark of faith that you felt. And the reason why is because, yes, God gave you this plan or this promise, but you've been walking into it and it hasn't been working. You've been walking into it and you haven't been seeing opportunity. You haven't been seeing doors opening and you haven't been seeing any results. And the journey and the experience that you are having is causing your faith to shift because in your head, you're questioning, well, if God gave me this instruction and He gave me this plan, shouldn't everything be easy? Shouldn't everything be working out smoothly? Why am I running into so many obstacles? Why aren't doors opening? Why did God tell me to start this and I'm not good at it? I'm not talented at it. It's not working for me. Why is the support that God told me I was going to have not there? Why is the customers that God told me I was going to have in my business not coming? Why aren't I making sales? Why isn't this working for me? We think that God's plans should always be smooth, right? But I'm here today to tell you that sometimes that's not the reality. Sometimes even going down the path that God led you to, following the instructions that God gave you, does not mean that everything is going to come together effortlessly. So I understand that it's tempting to think that you misheard God. It's tempting to start doubting and give up on this thing that God promised you. But instead of doing that, I want to use this episode to remind you that on your walk with Christ, you are going to experience different seasons. And if you want to stay aligned with God, if you want to continue down a road with God, even when things look confusing, even when things look blurry, you have to understand the seasons and the processes that God takes you through so that you understand what's happening to you while you're going through it. And that's what we're going to do with this episode. So a very important season that God takes us through is something that's called the pruning season. And so for the sake of this episode, I went to go do some research on pruning. And I learned that pruning in today's society is often a process used on plants. It's a process that removes specific parts of plants, such as the branches, the stem, and the roots. And the reason why these things are getting removed off of the plant is because it's supposed to improve the plant. It's supposed to cut off the weaker parts of the plant so that the plant can direct its energy to growing new and stronger parts, such as flowers and leaves, the beautiful part of the plants that we love to look at. I mean, honestly, how many of us look at plants and say, oh my God, I love that branch, or oh my God, I love that stem? No, that's not a part that's desirable to a lot of people. When you look at plants, you're like, oh my God, the leaves are so beautiful. Oh my God, these flowers are so beautiful. So what the pruning process does is it cuts off the weaker parts of the plant so that it can grow stronger in a more beautiful area. So the reason why the pruning season cuts off these weaker areas of the plant is for 3 reasons. Number 1, it helps the plant grow better. Number 2, it helps the plant become more healthier. And number 3, it helps the plant focus on better flower and fruit production. Now, as I was doing research on pruning, the thing that stood out to me in those 3 benefits is that pruning helps the plant focus on better flower and fruit production. A plant starts out as a seed, and that seed usually has a name that looks nothing like its starting point. What do I mean by that? A seed could be called a dandelion. But when you look at that seed before you plant it into the ground, it looks nothing like a dandelion. But it's still called that because that's what it's purposed to be. So the pruning season cuts off weaker parts of this plant as it's growing so that it can truly function in its purpose. God promised that seed that its purpose was to be a dandelion. And it didn't look like a dandelion when it first started. But as it went through the pruning season helped it cut off weaker areas and grow stronger so that it can fully function and grow into its purpose, so that it can see the promise of what God said it was. Now, let's bring this full circle because you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with me, right? When God gave you that plan, that instruction, or that promise, he told you what a purpose was in your life. If God promised you marriage, he told you that you have a purpose of being a wife. If God promised you entrepreneurship, he told you that you had a purpose of being a business owner. Whatever the promise was, God revealed to you a purpose that he wants you to walk and live on this earth. And some of you have been in a season where God has been revealing instructions to you, where something that once looked impossible kind of feels possible to happen, but you've been struggling to execute the plan. And because you've been struggling to execute the plan, you've been questioning, am I on the right path? Did God lie to me? Did I hear God correctly? Maybe my discernment is off. Maybe God never spoke to me. Maybe this was me. Maybe this was the devil trying to get me off course. You've been doubting God's plan because God's plan to you has not been working. But God wants you to understand that right now you are in a season of pruning. You don't just get the promise and go straight to it. You have to go through a process, and that process involves cutting some things off of you and making you stronger. See, you think that you're supposed to try God's plan one time and you're just supposed to naturally be good at it. But God is saying the more that you go through this process, the more that you keep practicing and you keep trying, I'm going to start strengthening your weaknesses. I'm going to start cutting off things that doesn't serve you, so that you can start growing stronger in this area and develop new skills that will help you get to where I'm trying to take you to. God is saying it's a process. There's some things that need to be cut off of you, and there's some things that need to be built inside you before you can transition into that purpose. You're in pruning right now. You did not mishear God. Your discernment is not off. God is just pruning you for the purpose. Remember when we said that the reason why plants prune is because it helps them be more productive in fruit production? Well, I went to go look up what the word productive means in the Bible and in Hebrew. And the word productive means fruitful. So I took it a step further and I went to go look up what fruitful means in the Bible and what it means in Hebrew. And it means to produce an abundance of things. God wants you to have abundance. And some of you have even been praying for abundance. But God wants you to understand that abundance comes through pruning. You've been praying to be fruitful. You've been praying to have more than enough. You've been praying to not struggle. You've been praying to have abundance. But you don't want to go through this season of pruning. You want to skip steps. You want God to give you the promise and then let the promise come immediately. But God says, normally when I give a promise and I call you to a purpose, the season that you're in does not look like what I promised you. And I don't just drop the promise into your lap. I have to take you on a journey of pruning, transforming who you are, transforming your environment, transforming your thoughts, transforming who and what you're listening to, getting rid of skills that do not serve you and building ones up that's necessary for your purpose. And that's where fruitfulness and abundance comes from. So if you want abundance, if you want to be fruitful, you have to be okay with pruning. So don't give up. Don't give into the devil's temptation. Because right now, the devil wants nothing more than for you to give up on what God is taking you to. He's in your ear and he's telling you, well, if this was really God, you wouldn't be going through this. If this was really God, you would see an open door by now. If this was really God, then you will have an opportunity presented to you. And you've been so willing to give into what the devil is saying and question this path that God has you on, thinking maybe I misheard him, thinking maybe this wasn't him speaking to me. And God is saying, hold on and don't give into that temptation. He's saying, I understand that the temptation is strong because many of us were never taught this side of the journey. I'm going to be honest. Growing up in church, even listening to a lot of like Christian podcasts and Christian people, I was always taught that if something was God, everything will automatically align. If you're on a journey and you feel confused, if you're on a journey and you're not seeing open doors, then that's not God speaking to you. If it was God and this was really God's plan, everything would come together effortlessly and you would not have any problems. And I had to really learn on my walk with him that sometimes that's not how he works. I went through a season where God gave me a plan, an exact blueprint of how to get something that I had been praying to him for. But when it came to me actually trying to execute the plan, I had no idea what I was doing. And I had this battle with myself because I'm like, did I hear you correctly? Because if you really gave me this plan, then how come I don't know how to walk into what you just told me to do? But I realized that sometimes God calls us to walk blurry. He'll give you just enough for you to know that he is okay and he is confirming what you are praying for. But he still wants you to rely on him. See, if God gave you the entire blueprint and then he showed you exactly how to execute it, you will just take that plan and you will run with it. But God is saying, I need you to walk a little blurry because I need you to rely on me in this season. You can't just take what I told you and run with it and do it all on your own. You need to hold my hand and allow me to guide you in this journey. You don't have sight, but I'm going to be your sight. You know where we're going, but you don't know exactly how to get there. So you have to keep coming to me and I'm going to guide you every step of the way. And the more that we walk, the more clear things will become. And when you think about it, this is what faith really is. Faith is not seeing the whole picture and knowing how everything's going to come together. Faith is walking blurry. Faith is not being able to see the picture clearly, but still believing that God is going to do what he promised you that he would do. And most importantly, faith is taking those blurry steps. When God gives you a little, you take that little step and you allow him to guide you until everything becomes more clear. So, if you are in a place where you feel like God has given you a plan or an instruction that does not make sense, instead of doubting it, instead of giving up, I want you to take it back to him. Break that plan down and break that instruction down and ask yourself, which parts of this does not make sense to me? Which part of this is keeping me stuck? Then pray to God over those parts and let him guide you. That's what it looks like to walk blurry. And I want you to take the steps today to start walking blurry. God's plan for your life is still intact. The bumps on the road does not cancel out his plan. They prepare you for it. So instead of going through those bumps and asking yourself, did I hear God wrong? I want you to start asking yourself, Lord, what are you shaping in me? Because guess what? On the other side of pruning and blurriness is fruitfulness and abundance. And you have to go through the blurriness. You have to go through the pruning in order to see what you've been praying to God for. And so that is all that I have for you today. Before we go, I do have an action step that I want to give you. So sometime this week, I want you to take out a journal and I want you to write down the plan or instruction that God has given you. Then I want you to circle the parts that feel unclear or impossible. And for each of those, I want you to pray to God, ask him for wisdom, clarity, and strength to continue moving, even though you feel confused and doubtful. And so that is all that I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe so that you get a notification every time a new episode is released. Also, leave a review and let me and others know how you enjoyed the show. And if you want to stay connected, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Prospering with Christ. But that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.